June 19th, last year, was Father's Day. Throughout the world, people were celebrating their fathers. I too had posted a picture of my father on Facebook. But little did I know then that within the next few hours, my father is going to die. Naturally, I was very shocked, and I can still not reconcile with the idea of not having that pillar of strength in my life. Almost a year later, here at Goodenough College, a place which hosts more than 80 nationalities, I would like to celebrate my father with all of you. My life journey starts from a small village in Pakistan. It's called Pind Nosheri Khan. That's where I was born, raised, and I've lived there all my life. I live in the village, practice law in Islamabad, and currently I'm studying international politics as a Chevening scholar here in London. Living this triple life, the rural life, urban life, and the Western life, and maintaining my distinct identity in the process was not easy. But I think I've managed somehow. I grew up in an environment where cultural values like chadar, which is the headscarf, and char diwari, or confinement of women within the four corners of the house, are deeply embedded. Women do not have an agency of their own, and whatever life choices they make, they're associated with the honor of the family, the community, and the tribe. I'm often told that you were born with a privilege because of your social status and the financial means. You could afford quality education. And therefore, your life experiences cannot be related by other women in that community. I agree, finances are important, but people often do not understand that the same privilege can at times also be a liability. I come not only from a culturally conservative family, but also a political one. Living in the village meant being publicly scrutinized, living up to the expectations, and adopting the same rigid values. Quite frankly, I take a lot of pride in my culture, my values, and my identity as an educated, rural, Muslim, Pakistani woman. But when those values are not adopted out of choice, but rather imposed and exploited by patriarchy, that's where I have an issue with. So you must be wondering, how did this girl from the village in Pakistan, she's now standing in central London and giving a talk, how did this happen? Without any doubt, my father was the most instrumental figure in my life journey. My father had a very difficult life. He was barely 12 when my grandfather was murdered. At that age of 12, my father was implicated in criminal cases, and he spent the early years of his life in prison. My father was therefore deprived of formal education. My aunts had to discontinue their education because of the family enmity, their circumstances, and the myopic mindset at that time, which was against female education. My grandmother was a very brave woman. She was a cancer patient. She was now the head of the household. She was the one who was taking the most important family decisions. So that period in prison, that time of adversity, taught my father the importance of two values: the importance of education, and the importance of women empowerment. What happens when women, out of their circumstances or otherwise, become heads of the household? How important it is, therefore, to educate and empower each and every citizen of the society, both men and women alike. My father continued his education even in the prison. Later on, he was exonerated of the charges leveled against him and acquitted by the judiciary. He got out of the prison, got married, had 4 children, I being the firstborn and the only daughter. My father was a very progressive man. He had a very busy public life, but he made sure that he took out time for the family. Whatever little time he had with his children, he would only talk about our education. He would tell me to know your purpose in life, set your goals, set them high, strive for them. He developed in me the habit of reading newspapers and watching news. When other children of my age were reading storybooks, I was following current affairs. I understand this is not really the best model to follow, but the point being that the importance of education, setting goals, and striving for them was a significant aspect of my upbringing. My father was a very proud, grounded, culturally conservative man himself, yet very progressive. Very protective as a father, but he never allowed his fears to become barriers in my life choices. He himself evolved over the period of time. When I started school, I was not allowed to study in a co-education environment because gender segregation is an important aspect of that culture. I got into my O-levels and I was made to study sciences because only medicine and teaching were the 2 professions which were considered prestigious for women. I wanted to study law, politics, history, sociology. I got into my A-levels, I was made to study sciences again. I would speak to the lawyers that I knew, and they were all male. I didn't know of any female lawyer, about my career choices. And you will be surprised to know that not even single one of them encouraged me to pursue a career in law. I was told that the courtroom environment is not conducive for women, so forget about it. I was very frustrated at that point, but I took the unilateral decision of changing my subjects without informing anyone. And I did pretty well in them. When my father found out, he was very happy. He was convinced that I had found my own path. He supported me in that decision, and I got myself enrolled in a law school, that too, a co-ed one. So I had broken 2 glass ceilings in the process. Studying law, that too, in a co-education environment. Then I was in my first year of undergraduate law, and I got selected by the US State Department on a 5-week leadership exchange program. I told myself there's no chance that I would be allowed to go. Even if I had to go from one place to the other within my own village, I had to be escorted by someone. I told my father. He was very happy. We live in a joint family system, and decisions are taken collectively. I have a very loving, supportive family, but when you are part of that culture, you perceive the world differently. My father was told, "What are you doing? She's a girl, she's barely 19, you're going to send her abroad? You're setting a very bad precedent." And my father would logically argue with the eldest member of the family to the youngest member of the family that we live in modern and competitive times. Let's not restrict opportunities for our children. Had it been any of my sons, we would all have been happy. Just because she's my daughter, why should I stop her from pursuing her ambitions? Regardless of whether he managed to convince everyone, or anyone for that matter, he took the firm ground. He vested his trust in me, and he sent me on this exchange program. That was an eye-opening experience for me. I got back, I completed my law degree. Later, I came to London, qualified as a barrister at law at Lincoln's Inn, and I became the first barrister, or a lawyer, female barrister in that community. So my father had set those ripples. At home, he was an institution for me, where he was telling me that there's no glass ceiling which you cannot shatter. In the society, he was well respected, and he used his position to bring change. In a society, in a culture where it is looked down upon to even mention names of daughters publicly, my father was celebrating his daughter and whatever little achievements I was making. This had a very positive impact, not only on female education, but also on male education. It's an agrarian society, and the general mindset amongst boys is that since we will be inheriting properties from our fathers and forefathers, we can do even without education or employment. But when they saw a girl from the same community, coming from a similar background, taking education and career seriously, there was a shift towards making career choices amongst boys as well, which is great. But having said that, things are not as bright as we would like to think that they are. I'm currently studying politics, but I'm aware of the fact that if I were to ever run for office in future, as a woman, the hurdles would be greater. The double standards would be greater. And my father is not there anymore to fight for me. But he has given me the vision and the courage that my gender is or can in no way be an impediment in terms of the life choices that I make. My gender cannot render me misfit for running for a public office. My father proved that he was right and everyone else was wrong. So, patriarchy is a system of exploitation. It creates hierarchies whereby men are given superiority over women. I ardently believe that if men, especially those of you who are fathers or those of you who are in leadership positions, if you assume upon yourself the responsibility of fighting patriarchy, the very foundations of this unjust system will crumble down. It is important that we all fight patriarchy together, regardless of our gender, race, ethnicity, whatever part of the world we come from. For patriarchy anywhere is a threat to human rights, not just women's rights, everywhere. Patriarchy unleashes itself both in peace and also in war. There are many in my country who, out of fear, do not send their daughters to school or for work. But I want to tell them that fear is not the solution. Rather, it perpetuates patriarchy. So, may we together educate more women. May we empower more women. May we create those environments where women from all kinds of backgrounds, they can adopt their identity as they wish and utilize their potential to the fullest. May we create more women leaders, and may we evolve into societies and the world where we're all treated equally. Thank you very much.